Hi, folks. Welcome to another round of Alicia reviewing books. I don't have a catchy title yet. We might not ever get one, but if you're new, welcome. My name's Alicia Johnson. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I love to read. I read therapy-related books, self-help books, fantasy books, romance books. I read it all. And so I thought, hey, I'm really passionate about mental health awareness and also helping folks find appropriate resources for them. So why don't I read a million books and let you know which ones to check out, which ones don't? I'm not going to tell you which ones to check out. I'll just give you little summaries, what I like, what I don't like, and then you can decide for yourself and let me know what you think. So today's book I was so excited to read. It's called Set Boundaries, Find Peace. If you know anything about me, whether it's personal life, social media, Facebook, in therapy, you know I'm a big boundary girly. I run a boundary for therapist group. I talk about boundaries with my friends, with my families, with my cat. Um, Always a big boundary fan. I have I'm just big boundary fan. I've looked at a few different boundary books before because I have clients who like to have resources and read as well. And so I've been looking for a good boundary book. This is one that's been recommended to me for a while. It's been on my bookshelf forever. And then finally, this and a book club kind of like helped set the fire in me. And I finally got to read it. So I had big hopes for it. And you guessed it, I didn't love it. I know. I know. I was so bummed. I was reading it and like I could tell within the first few pages that I wasn't gonna like this book. And I was like, oh, but it's a book club book. I have to read it. Like, maybe it'll get better. I had such high hopes because again, like set boundaries, find peace. I love the message of all of this. It just wasn't a book for me. So overall, I do give it a 3 out of 5 stars because while it's not really for me and I wouldn't recommend it for my clients, I can see how some people might like some of the language and it could be a starting spot. So stick through to the what I liked piece of it. And then if it sounds like it's up your alley and you can like deal with the things that I didn't like about it, or if we have different opinions on those things, which is totally valid, you can check it out for yourself and then let me know your thoughts. I have an okay microphone, but I think my neighbor's just starting to mow the lawn. So if you hear that, I apologize. Okay, so I'm going to start with things that I didn't like because if you have a short attention span and you just want like to get into it, I want you to be warned. I also have more things to say that I didn't like, so we're gonna just get right into it. If you've seen any of my other videos, whether it's these YouTube videos or on my social media, you know that I don't love generalized statements. I'm a big language person, and so people that use generalized statements, which are things like all people, these are the reasons, you need this if, just like really rigid, big, bold statements. I get it from a marketing piece because if you're writing a book or you're doing things on social media, you kind of need like the flashy stuff. But this is written by a mental health professional, so I'm like, how do we not get the nuance, right? I'm also very intentional with the messages that I put out there. I do a lot of social media stuff, and I'm very intentional with saying some reasons include, or some people may, because then if you don't fit that generalized statement, you're not like, oh, something's wrong with me, because there's so many different things. And especially when we talk about something like boundaries, boundaries are such a big umbrella term that we cannot copy and paste the same things for all people, all experiences, all situations. And so that was the biggest red flag for me right away is like literally on page one, there was just like these big generalized statements. And I was like, oh, we are not gonna vibe. So it just seemed very like narrow-minded instead of like, I think you can add these qualifiers and it doesn't take away from the powerful meaning of the book, right? Like you can say a statement like, you need boundaries if, and then that was a literal quote from like page one in the introduction. And so you could say, you might need boundaries if. That honestly doesn't change the fact that I'm going to read this list and resonate with things. But it's just, you're not like telling me what to do. And maybe that's like the angsty teen in me of like, don't tell me what to do because it's just you need boundaries if like it made it feel like she was like shaming me or judging me, and that's so not the intention I think that the author was trying to have, but it felt like it was like fear mongering or like shaming in a way, and I truly don't think that that's the message that this author was trying to get. So it just seemed meh. Like even I have other quotes 'cause I like wrote all of them down. There's another one that said never ever ever apologize or don't say too much. She was talking about these when like we set a boundary with someone, and I get her intention, right? Like the message is that we don't need to apologize for having a boundary. It's not something we have to feel bad about. You know, women I think especially have I know I'm guilty of it. I'm doing it right now. We talk a lot. We maybe like over explain things, try to justify things. So I get the intention. However, I'm a systems person. I think about relationships, I think about the patterns that we have. And so just a statement that says never automatically is like, but there might be times where like we can apologize if we've maybe been misclear about a boundary before. If our boundary changes, again, we don't have to apologize for our boundary changing, but if someone is like, and again, we're not responsible for the other person's emotions. Like, again, I get the message, but it just seemed kind of cold when, like, I think I could say, oh, I'm sorry. Maybe I wasn't, no, I don't like the word maybe. Like, maybe I misunderstood last time. Maybe I wasn't clear about something. I know before I said this and now I'm saying this. I can understand how that's confusing. So we can apologize for aspects of it. I do agree that we don't apologize for having a boundary. Like, I'm not sorry if I have to say no. I'm not sorry for having my own needs and wants, but I can have like empathy and sympathy for how someone else is feeling about that. It doesn't have to be an either or thing. Or even like not saying too much, like that one seemed really weird to me too, because again, I think about conversations, and when I've set boundaries with the people that I care about, I want them to understand my thoughts, my feelings, my intentions, and it just helps us connect better. Like boundaries aren't a punishment or a bad thing, and so it doesn't seem like I want them to understand it, right? Because I'll oftentimes when we're having a conversation, it's because they don't have the same boundary or the same experience or the same wants or needs, which is okay. So we need to kind of work on like, this is why this is important to me. And they get it eventually. So I don't know. It just seemed weird to me, some of the language. So maybe that's just me being nitpicky. You can read it and let me know if I'm overreacting. The other thing that I didn't love, and again, this is coming from a person who loves boundaries. I talk about boundaries with most of my clients. Again, I talk about boundaries with friends, families. I've been called boundaries, too boundaried as an insult before, so I love boundaries. The book kind of makes it seem as if like boundaries are the cure-all for everything, though. And again, I get it if like this book is selling boundaries to people, like you need to kind of show the importance of it. But boundaries are not first of all, a cure. Like I don't love that language anyway. But secondly, it's not fixing everything. Like people, again, the nuance, right? People are more complex than that. It's not this simple. It's a tool. It's one of my favorite tools, but it's not the only thing. And that kind of talks a little bit about systems. If you've watched my other videos, you might know that language of systems language. If this is new, I won't bore you too much, but I'm a systems thinker. So I'm a trained licensed marriage and family therapist, and in our first semester of school, we take this metaphorical, I've never watched The Matrix, so I actually don't know this metaphor, but it's like the red pill or the blue pill, and it kind of like changes your way of thinking. And so most of us, we think in a very like linear, like A happens, B happens, C happens. A happens, that causes B to happen, and then C happens. That's how our brain is pretty wired. I get it, nothing wrong with that. MFTs though, systems thinkers, it's a different ball game. Like my brain truly cannot go back to thinking that way ever again. Like my perspective is truly changed. So systems takes into account more of a circular causation thing. So it's not like a point A and a point B and a point C, but this happened because this other thing happened, and then that happened because this other thing, and it's just like a continuous cycle. And that cycle is also impacted by these external things as well, like our friends, our culture, our family, books that we read, media, laws, timelines, historical events, all these things with like a giant puzzle instead of like ABC. It's more just like a puzzle piece. And this book was not systemic at all, which makes sense because it's not a marriage and family therapist, but I'm just going to be picky when it comes to systems because if you don't take a systems approach, if you use that more linear approach with things like boundaries, burnout, self-care, it puts like all the responsibility on you. And that makes sense in that she thinks that this is a cure, right? So it's like, well, if you are burnt out, boundaries, A to B, right? And it's really simple. If you've ever been burnt out before, I can tell you that it is not that simple. It's also not all on your responsibility. Like that's she literally has an entire chapter about overwhelm and burnout, which are things that I specialize in, by the way. And again, she literally says if you're burned out, the cure is boundaries. Hello? Burnout is not due to lack of boundaries. Burnout is due to these external systemic issues like underappreciating women's roles and jobs and underpaying people and high workloads and expecting all these things and having an unsafe work environment and hustle culture and doing all this stuff. And yes, boundaries are something that I help people with to tackle burnout, but that is not the only cure, right? There's these external things that are happening. And if you say, we'll just do boundaries, that puts all of the blame on you. And I'm not about that. So there's a real quote in this book called Burnout is Overwhelming and Boundaries Are the Cure. If you have ever been burnt out and you tried to set a boundary, did it cure it? Let me know. Because again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm in Delulu land, but boundaries are not the cure. Boundaries are a tool that can help, but the cure is often these bigger things that need to change. And again, it just seems very like blamey. Like, oh, you didn't set a boundary, you're working too long, like without actually thinking about the consequences of those things, the pressures that we face, the consequences that can happen. It just seemed really simplified. So again, that could be a me thing because my brain is forever changed as a systems thinker. You might not think that's an issue. Here for it. Okay, so if we can ignore that, the other thing I didn't love, so let me backtrack. It does cover how to handle people who respond negatively to your boundaries and what you can do. Love that, right? Because I think that's the number one issue that people don't set boundaries for is because we're scared or fearful of how it's going to impact someone else. We're scared that they're going to be upset, that they're going to yell at us, there's going to be a consequence, we're going to lose that relationship. And so she acknowledges that, which is good. And she talks a little bit about how to respond. I just wish it would have gone deeper because I think that's really the like meat of why people don't set boundaries. And so a few bullet points on like, oh, if someone threatens to cut you off, here's like 3 bullet points. I was like, that's literally what I spend sessions and sessions and sessions talking to people about. And there's so much, so many layers there, right? Because there's love, there's fear, there's maybe not believing that they're worth it. Like there's just so much stuff. And I get that a book might not be the best space to explore that, but I think they could have done way more because I think that's what most people who are looking for a boundary book are, how do I do this? And how do I deal with it if someone's going to be like negative to me? And I just didn't think that they really got to go as deep as they could have. And again, this is going to sound repetitive because it's repetitive in the book, but it just shames people for not setting boundaries. There's a direct quote, how are you allowing people to take advantage of you? I do love a little bit of tough love. Like sometimes I'll like gently say that to my clients, but we have a relationship there. And I always come back to like, they also have a response to like the other person who's taking advantage of you also has a role in this, right? Like they are the ones taking advantage of you. Yes, there's a piece that we can play of we can set boundaries, we can talk about it, we can set limits, we can say no, fully acknowledge that. But I was just like, oh, I didn't love that. I didn't love how that was worded. How are you allowing people to take advantage of you? Because I have clients say that to me. And again, like maybe it's just the clients that I work with, but a lot of my clients take on all the responsibility for things. They blame themselves for things that are not their responsibility. They think they're not good enough. They are very self-critical. And so a statement like, how are you allowing people to take advantage of you, feels like, again, it's putting all the blame on the person instead of, hey, let's explore this. What are things that we can do so that these other people can stop taking advantage of us? Like they're the ones who are taking advantage of us. So again, nuanced language person, you can be annoyed by it. Okay. The other thing that I didn't love is that a lot of the suggested boundaries that she uses in the book kind of seem out of touch with reality. I work with a wide range of folks. So I work with folks all across different SES statuses, education levels, family styles, relationship statuses, all the things. And it just seemed like very educated, high SES, life would be so simple type stuff instead of, again, just more messy. So one of the suggestions was, oh, if you have too many tasks on your plate, hire help, delegate, ask for help. I love those suggestions if you can do it. Like I've told clients before that are have maybe some extra income that they can use. Yeah, like if cleaning is stressful, hire that out. Amazing. But that's also not that simple. Like, one, not everyone can just hire help. Also, asking for help isn't always easy. I work with many of my clients. We talk about the mental load of household chores and asking for help. Like if you ask your partner for help, that kind of puts the mental load on you, or having to kind of create a schedule, or sometimes it takes more work to have to ask for help, explain how it's done because that person's never done it before and they have that weaponized incompetence. And now you're having to answer a million questions when it's almost easier if you just do it. So it's not necessarily sustainable to do it that way, but I just don't think she really understands the complexities of, well, it's not always as simple as asking for help or delegating because that also has some consequences there. And it's some people don't have that extra mental load to explain those things. So it just seemed kind of out of touch. Like, I can't just hire someone, can't just ask for help. So I don't know. Okay, one of my biggest things that I didn't love, and I went down a rabbit hole with this one, y'all, because I was like, am I wrong? Like, I was like, felt like I was being gaslit by this book almost. But it frames ultimatums in a good light. Like, I'm gonna like have a serious conversation about this. So I have always thought that ultimatums were a more like negative, forceful, threatening thing. She literally, and again, this is a direct quote, she says that people can learn to respect ultimatums. Ma'am, I respectfully disagree with that statement. I had to Google. I went down to like dictionary.com. I was looking up, researching the difference between ultimatums and boundaries because I've had clients ask me this before and I thought I knew the difference. And then when she's saying ultimatums are a good thing, I was like, thought I was dreaming. I was like, what the heck? So no, ma'am, ultimatums are threats. In all the definitions I found and all the examples I found, ultimatums have a threat, coercive, or forceful nature to it. There are some overlaps with boundaries, but boundaries are more about choice and your values and natural consequences. Ultimatums are more about control. And I actually think this is going to be a real hot take. I think she doesn't know the difference between them. Because even throughout the book, some of the boundaries she was trying to explain, or the examples, were about controlling other people's behavior. And that's not what boundaries are about. Boundaries are about our limits, what we need to have a healthy and safe relationship with someone else, it's not about controlling people. So like one of the examples she even has, and I didn't even write this one down, but it just sticks in my head was like, well, if you have more than like you can't drink more than 4 drinks. And that's kind of more about control. A boundary would be I feel uncomfortable when people have more than 4 drinks. Maybe I have bad experience. Again, we need to over-explain ourselves. I do kind of like that point with her before. So I feel uncomfortable when I'm around people who have had more than 4 drinks. So I'm gonna leave if other people have more than 4 drinks. If I'm in a sitting setting where there's people who are having more than 4 drinks. So it's very different. So boundaries are about what we are gonna do. Ultimatums are more about controlling what other people are gonna do. There's literally a show on Netflix called The Ultimatum, and it's like about how awful. Like, we can't give ultimatums to people. That's not a sustainable thing. That's not healthy in relationships. We can do natural consequences. We can have limits. We can say, I'm not okay with these things. Those are valuable, but we're not trying to control people. And that's a big misconception. So I think she might need to look at what an ultimatum is. And my final thought, and again, it's repetitive, but it's because it was happening throughout the entire freaking book, is that it's not systemic. You're gonna get so annoyed with how much I say that. But again, I wrote another quote down because I want to back it up. She says, setting limits won't disrupt a healthy relationship. If you are a systems thinker, I'm going to get nerdy with you for a second, because if you're not a systems thinker, you might say, okay, that makes sense, right? This quote is so wrong. Like fundamentally, just like objectively, not even an opinion. This is a fact that this is wrong because our bodies have this term called homeostasis. It's even like if you're a computer person, it's similar to, I'm not a computer person, but I remember learning that it was similar to how a computer system works. So we have this thing called like our normal space, like our homeostasis. And our bodies do a great job at maintaining that space. Even if it's not healthy, even if it's not, good, our bodies know how to survive that. We see this a lot in like households with high stress and trauma. Like it might not be super fun living in there, but you know how to survive those environments, right? So we're vibing. And then even if a change happens, let's say you're in a super chaotic household and you go to like a friend's house for the weekend and they're like the most normal, chill people. Do you know what happens to your body? It's like, what the heck is this? That's a good change, right? You're like, oh, these people are loving each other. They are respecting each other. This is so fun. This is carefree. Like, it's a great thing. Your body's not used to that. Now, our bodies can adjust and we can take that information in and we can change and we can figure out a new kind of like status, but it does disrupt it temporarily. So I always say, even good change is stressful for the body. And there's another term that we use, we're called perturbing the system. So we're getting that information in, we're gathering all this stuff, and it does impact a relationship. Now, a healthy relationship will make it work. They take that information in and they adjust. They respect those boundaries. They might say, hey, this is a little hard for me, but I value you. I value this relationship. I'm going to work on it. It might take us a little bit to be like, oh, this is kind of weird. Like, they're not pushing my boundaries anymore. What is this? So it does disrupt a relationship. Healthy relationships just handle that disruption and they work through it and they find a new normalcy, homeostasis type thing. So objectively, that's just wrong. And I might just have to like learn systems theory, everyone. And it's going to make life so much easier. Okay. So besides it not being systemic and having awful language and being too simplified and all that jazz, if you're still like, you know what, Alicia, I can overlook those things. There were some admirable things about the book. I didn't rate it a 1 star. I did rate it a 3. So there were some things that I liked. One, it is relatable. I think it takes such a good talent of people to be able to take these complex mental health, self-helpy type terms and then make it into a space where pretty much anyone can read and like understand it, right? So super relatable examples, even like feeling guilty when setting boundaries with family. I think that's like the number one thing that I hear folks talk about is guilt. So I think she truly understands the experiences that people have. Um, Super easy to follow and understand. So just like, yeah, that's probably the number one strength is if you are looking for something that's a good like starting piece, take it with a grain of salt. But in terms of like, will you be able to understand this book and what boundaries are? Yes, absolutely yes. I love a good, like, cute, empowering statement. Like, I love a mantra. I fully believe that how we think impacts how we feel and what we do. And so, starting to challenge some of those, like, negative beliefs that we have or messages that we've taken from our surroundings, I think she does a great job of adding new information to challenge some of those unhelpful thoughts. Also, wonderful journal exercises, reflection questions. So very good if you're like looking to kind of get some insight onto things, and really just kind of start exploring what boundaries are, what your boundaries are, and playing around with some of those things. So all of that done very well, very relatable, very understanding. One of the things I actually liked about it, and you might not like about it, which is totally fair, it was a little bit of a tough love, like reality check. And I'm here for it because even though I'm like gonna like ride or die, I'm gonna fully like be on my folks' team. I love that it reminds folks that it's up to us to set our boundaries, communicate them, enforce them. Like the responsibility of boundaries are on us because I think a lot of people think that boundaries are about other people. It's other people's responsibility to read my mind, have common sense what my boundaries are, to hear it one time and then just automatically understand what it is. And that's not the case. Boundaries ultimately are our responsibility. It's up to us to make sure they are clear, to enforce them, to figure out what they are, because it's not common sense. So I love that it was like, this is on you a little bit. It's not your fault for like other things. Again, burnout's not your fault, all that stuff. But like, it is our responsibility to communicate our boundaries. I also loved that she encourages boundaries at all ages. This is also a theme throughout the book, but there was like a specific part about helping kids have boundaries and how to communicate, help instill these things to kids. And I love this 1,000,000% because it's so much easier to have kids start learning body autonomy and boundaries and knowing that their opinions and voices are respected than working with the adults that we are now, having to unlearn all these things of, well, my parents forced me to do this, or I said no to this, and then this wasn't really respected. And so, like, you're kind of having to unlearn some of these contradictory messages. So, by giving kids choices, by helping them have a voice, by helping them feel heard and respected, like that's going to be a game changer for future generations. And I'm fully here for this. Co-sign. Love that message throughout the book. Again, like there's a big chunk on it, but she does give, that's like a constant theme throughout the book, and I love it. I also like that she talks about different types of boundaries because this is something that I do with a lot of my clients and even in like my therapy circles. We often think about boundaries between people and it's always like a really tough, difficult conversation, right? Like, I don't want you to say this to me or I don't want to like hang out. Like, there's just like this big, tough thing. And sometimes boundaries do look like that. But sometimes boundaries are about finances, about our time management. We can have work boundaries. We can have boundaries with friends, family, spouses, kids, ourselves, mental boundaries, emotional boundaries, so many different things, physical boundaries. And so I like that if maybe some of these areas seem more difficult to start with, maybe starting in a different area and even starting small. So like she does a great job of empowering folks to like start small, do something, and starting to think about our wants and needs. And if having a difficult conversation with a loved one might be a little too intense right now, there's other things you can do that are also beneficial. So I liked all of that. It's very similar to how I work with folks around boundaries. It's great. This is a like and a dislike. Um, So I do appreciate that she addresses trauma because, especially when we think about relational trauma, that's literally when our boundaries are violated in some way, and our brain is then thinking, well, people aren't going to respect me, or our brain just starts kind of creating all of these assumptions about things due to those traumas. And I like that she showed that it happens. Again, I think this is just a me thing that I wish it would have gone like a little bit deeper. Maybe this isn't the book for that. But I do think she does a great job sharing those examples and slowly how to challenge maybe some of those beliefs that other people were putting on us when it comes to trauma and boundaries, and giving us that permission that, well, we can have these boundaries. So I think she did a really good job with that. Okay, so like I said, I had more that I didn't like about it. There were some good points and good like underlying themes throughout. There's just some things that I would have tweaked with perspectives and language. So who would I recommend this for? I actually would recommend it for some folks. So I would recommend this book for people who are already aware and motivated to set boundaries and really just want a place on like how to start these things, because it gives really good tips on what to say, some example boundaries to set. So it's a great like starting spot. However, I wouldn't recommend this to people who are a little bit more hesitant or ambivalent about setting boundaries yet. I would encourage talking to a therapist or using this book with a therapist because of those deeper things like, well, what if, this person reacts negatively, or I have all this guilt, or I have this trauma? Um, those things didn't go as deep into the book. And I think a little bit of that mindset work, really going through the nuance of things, making sure that these boundaries work for you and not like a cookie cutter thing. If you need a little bit more nuance, then you can read the book, talk about it with a therapist, or to talk to a therapist. If I find another boundary book, I will update this video in the comments and share that. But yeah, like if you are like, well, I don't know if I should set a boundary with this person, this book might not be there for you. You might benefit from doing some other stuff. So all in all, it's an okay book if you are not annoyed with the lack of systems like me. But to be fair, most self-help books don't have that systems lens. So I think I'm just going to be a little bit more strict on that than the average person. There were some good things, good starting points. So all in all, you can read it. Let me know what you think. I was just big disappointed and bummed by it, but I will put the link for it if this sounds up your alley still, here for it. Not going to shame anyone who likes this book. So many therapists do recommend this and love it. That's the great thing about books is we can all think different things and take away different things. So let me know what you take away from this, and I'm always game to do a reread with some new perspectives. So keep me posted, follow along for more book recs, and overall, have a good day, y'all.